All right. Oh, a little bit loud. Hi, everyone. We're going to get started now. I'm aware that people are still coming in from lunch, but I think that's okay. My name is Andrew Toy. I am a product director within the Android and Chrome team, and I'm here to talk to you today about how we see devices and the cloud coming together to help build the connected workspace of the future, how we see the devices adding to the cloud and the cloud capabilities being additive to our devices strategy. Obviously, within Google, we have Android and we have Chrome OS, and so those are our platforms, and we definitely build those to be cloud-oriented, but most of what I talk about today is basically a way that you can look at a general devices strategy plugging back into the cloud. So many of you will already know this. These are statistics that we all see flying by, but there's a lot of confusion and there's a lot of progress going around how we use devices today in the workplace. Many people, everyone here I'm sure, are using their devices every day for work, but what does that really mean in the context of extending the workplace? And we all know that IoT, the Internet of Things, a very heavily overused word, but the Internet of Things is coming. Those are also devices. And how do those plug into the cloud and plug into a general mobility strategy? So the way that we see it at Google is that while we've all talked about mobile for a while, mobility really is more about the next generation of modern endpoint and the next generation of modern device that is connecting to our centralized data systems within a company. And now that could be in a data center and that could be in a cloud. We think that that's moving all towards the cloud, obviously, but it doesn't have to be the cloud. But we definitely see device proliferation increasing the amount of data that is actually going into all of our systems, the amount of data that could be available to us as people who operate within companies, increasing the amount of data that's available to us as application developers, and bringing all of this together is really where we see the future of application development in a mobile-first world, and the next generation of that is just being a internet everywhere world. So the way I like to think about this, and this is a slightly different way of looking at the mobile problem, a slightly different way of looking at the devices problem, is that really what we all want is data. Data is what is valuable to all of our businesses. Data is what is valuable to application developers. And the reason we do all of this stuff around mobile is actually to proliferate data so that it's available to us all the time, and then we feel like we can take action upon that data in any place at any given moment. So that's the traditional knowledge worker definition, where you have, say, your email, and one of the very first use cases for mobility was extending email out so we could have email everywhere, because email was that most generic way that we could deliver information, right? So if you get a sales report, it can be emailed to you. If you need to approve, say, an expense, that could be done theoretically over email. So what made email special was it's a very general transport that allows lots of different kinds of data to be sent to us as individuals, and that was very enticing and very appealing. But the extension of this is that we want all businesses to become data-centric businesses, for business decisions to be made around the data and to make it be generally more available. We hear from a lot of customers that this is absolutely what they want, and we see devices and mobility being as essential in actually achieving this goal. But let's take it even up another level and say, well, why do we want data? We don't want data for the sake of just having stuff, right? The more stuff is not what we actually want in our day-to-day lives. But what we believe here at Google is that you cannot improve what you cannot measure. So measurement is actually really important. And it's obvious, and we all know this at some level, but it's something that's very easy to lose sight of unless you really bake it into your day-to-day thinking. And for us, it's baked into the way we think about our entire mobility strategy. So the first stage is, how do we measure things within our environment? We could be measuring productivity, we could be measuring individual output of employees, and that's one part of it. But we could be measuring spaces, measuring how spaces are used, measuring collaboration, measuring manufacturing within a factory. We want to make sure that we have insights and actually can gather information in all the places that it is available to us. So an example that I like to give is thinking about getting access to an experience that many of us have, an experience with, say you go to a fast food restaurant. I go to fast food restaurants more than I generally like to admit, but I go to fast food restaurants, right? So you go there. A lot of fast food restaurants here in the US will actually know how much they actually sell to the people who come to their stores. It's something that they will know, right? So they know that they sell X number of hamburgers or X number of tacos or whatever it is that they're selling, and they'll know that because they have their point of sale in their store. So they have data, and they can optimize on that data, and they do, and they can make projections, they can do supply chain, and they can do all those things on that data. But many of these stores actually do not know how many people come into their store. All they know is how much they sell. That's all they know, how much they sell, because it's in the point of sale. They don't actually know how many people come in the door. So if you ask what the conversion rate is for someone coming in the door, it's actually very hard to tell because you don't know what's going on. You don't know when you sold one taco, whether or not that one taco was sold to one individual who came in, or did a family of 6 come in and order one taco. That information is invisible to the actual company. So instrumentation is actually a slightly less obvious thing. It's obvious you want to instrument your sales, but it might be slightly less obvious to instrument, well, how many people are coming into the store? How many people are parking in my parking lot? And do they all come into my store? How many, when they come into my store, are they all ordering and then taking it back out to their car, or are they ordering it and then they're sitting down at a table and eating it there? These are all actually important operational fields for someone to run their restaurant. But a lot of businesses are blind to this data today. So I deliberately give that example because it's probably not it's an experience we all have, but not something we're thinking about every day. And instrumentation, and this word we have of just gathering this information of all the data that's important to your business, is the first step. The second step is analyzing that data. So first of all, we get the data, and then we analyze the data. So the analysis stage is, first of all, you need to put the data somewhere which is useful and common, and you need to put in clean data. And second of all, you then need to sort of pull out insights from that. We at Google are very good at this. Google Cloud is very good at this, and we have many tools ranging all the way from just query tools like BigQuery to store the data and pull stuff out, over to machine learning that can actually help optimize fields, and I'm sure many of you have heard about those capabilities, but that's the phase that we're talking about, analysis. And finally, there's improvement, which is we don't do all this unless we want to improve, right? Business outcomes, we want to increase revenue, we want to increase the number of people who come to a store, the number of people who order the actual products in the store or buy in the store, and that's the improvement. And then you go and do it again. You don't go through a cycle where you just say, well, we improved it, let's move on. You improve it, you measure it again, you improve it, you measure it again. Very simple concepts, but fundamental to how we can actually do this better now, much, much better, with a combination of devices and the cloud. So the idea is that by using our fleet of devices, we can actually put very cost-effective instrumentation within any number of workplaces. If you want to know how your conference rooms are being used within your offices, that can be easily measured. If you want to know, the examples I gave before, how a restaurant is operating, that can be measured. If you want to know how a hospital is operating and how the patients are interacting, that can be measured. Many, many things that were kind of difficult to measure before or were measured ad hoc are now able to be measured in a much cleaner way, and that data, it can actually stream up and be placed in a central place. So if you imagine for a moment that you operate many, many restaurants across the US. I'll just stick with this example, quick service, and you have all your franchisees and you have all this data. Imagine that you suddenly had access to all this rich data, like the number of people coming in, the number of people going through the drive-thru, the number of people using your parking lot, the number of people ordering the products, right? The number of people using the tables, like how every employee is actually performing on a day-to-day basis, how many things that they're making. All of this data has to go somewhere. And that place is actually going to be the cloud. Definitely. It doesn't make sense for businesses to build out all their own data to absorb all this new data that they now have access to. The cloud is where it's going to go. And as Google, obviously, we have every component of this particular story. We have great devices between Android and Chrome and our Internet of Things sensors platforms. We have the GCP and the Google Cloud Platform to absorb all that data and provide analysis. We have layers on top of it to provide productivity tools and general analysis tools in G Suite, and a lot of different applications, just cloud applications across the portfolio, like Google Maps, for example, that can be used to garnish the data that's being pulled in. So the place that we see this going from a connected workspaces portfolio standpoint is that, first of all, we want to make sure everything is going to be connected. Everything is going to be connected. So every device, every mobile platform, every sensor should be thought holistically and together. You shouldn't have one thing for running your email and say, well, how am I going to do BYOD with email? This way. Then how am I going to do my corporate liable fleet for document management? Okay, this way. Then how am I going to do IoT smart sensors? This way. Then these are all actually endpoints, and all devices are going to be connected to the internet. You can add security and stuff on top of that, and I'll talk about that in a moment, but they're all going to be connected devices. Maybe not tomorrow, but definitely within like 3 to 5 years, everything we will all be doing will be connected. And so the idea we have is we want to lay the foundations right now of our strategies to be able to accommodate that future massive proliferation of devices. You want everything to be smart, and when we say smart, that means that data-centric point of view. So thinking about where your data is being gathered, thinking about how to secure that data, how to move it around, where you're going to build your repositories and your caches. Are you going to actually gather that data, for example, at the individual store level and then move it up to the cloud? Are you going to have every device stream that data straight into your central data centers and within the cloud so that you can actually individually have those use APIs? All those decisions are the ones you want to be thinking about right now. And we'll talk about security in a moment. So this is the sort of easy way to break down the phases when we're talking to customers and the way we're thinking about it here at Google. The first stage is think about how to better instrument your business. Giving your employees devices to get their email, their documents, was the first stage of instrumentation. That's what all our companies were actually doing when we actually give out those devices and let you interact with work and interact with work data and work applications. We are instrumenting the employees. The next thing is you want to instrument probably, and we jump to the bottom, the spaces, right? So areas like this room, for example. So we know how many people are in the room. We know which of the people in this room are Googlers and which people are from people from outside. Instrumenting your spaces could be from retail spaces to hospitals, anywhere with brick and mortar, conferences, conference room space, micro kitchens, all those kinds of things is where IoT comes in. And that's where a lot of the new data is going to be coming in over the next few years. And another area that people don't often think about is instrumenting the customers as well. How are you going to actually get data from your customer base, and BYOD and applications and mobility can actually feature into this, as well as plugging into the devices they have within their environments. So when Amazon gives out devices so that you can order from Amazon at home, that is a way you can instrument your customer base. And all of these data streams should not be thought of as separate. And that's why we have all the little interweaving of the actual streams there, right? All this is going to come together, and you want to think about how you actually join and analyze all of this information in a way where you can easily gather it in the instrumentation phase, and then run queries upon it and gain insights in that red analysis phase. And that's where the cloud comes in. Because it's all too easy for individual silos and individual groups within the enterprise to be thinking about this, and you end up storing all of your data in individual silos, and really that's just not what you want to do, right? To gain real insights, you want to be able to join this data to pull out really cool information, and that's where machine learning comes in as well, right? The more siloed data is, the harder it is for you to eventually use something like ML to pull out insights, and to be future-proof, you want to be thinking about your data warehousing strategy, your device strategy right now. So connected devices, and we talked about this before, are absolutely going to just be everywhere. That's just the world we're going to live in. And so now, I'm a mobile guy. I've been in mobile for a long time. I've been mobile all the way back to the days when we were using WAP on phones. And in case anyone ever did WAP programming, that's we all carry, there's certain scars that you carry if you're coming from those days. But I've been in mobile for a very long time, and mobile was defined of a while to be like, well, first of all, it's telephony. Right? Then it was telephony with tiny, tiny little bits of data using something like WAP in carrier walled gardens. Then it was, okay, no, now mobile is, okay, we're going to just start to put the web and put the internet on our devices. Then the iPhone came and said, well, no, now these are tiny little computers, and then mobile really means how do I develop apps for this new place? Because we were just about to go to all web, and now we have to develop apps for Android and for iPhones and things like that and put them in the app stores. Mobile now, I think, actually just means everything. Everything is going to be a mobile device. Don't even think about it as a separate category anymore. Just think about your devices and endpoint strategy. Don't think about what's my mobile strategy and what's my other strategy, right? I used to say this, and I think we're actually right here now, but when I gave a talk maybe 2-3 years ago, what I used to say was, I know it feels like mobile is its own thing. I know you feel like you're going to have your own mobile group, your own mobile application group. You're going to hire mobile developers. It feels like its own separate category. But trust me, mobile, a few years ago, mobile is just going to be like the term internet, right? So in the late 90s, the exact same thing was happening. You had your internet group, you had your internet experts, you hired internet programmers, and it was like, wow, there's this whole internet category that a business would have and say, we need to have an internet group. And now very, very few companies have an internet group anymore, right? The internet is actually just built all the way through the culture of the company. It's built all the way through every strategy that the company makes. You don't just say, well, yeah, how do we deal? The internet guys will handle that. It just sounds outmoded. That's where we are imminently are with mobile right now. Again, we're just on the cusp. You might not intuitively feel that way, but you will feel that way very soon. So I encourage everyone in this room, stop thinking about mobile being a separate thing. Mobile is now fundamental and as existential to every process that you do. It is as existential to every business's ability to compete. When you think about something being mobile first, even that is a phrase that we're kind of moving away from. Mobile just needs to be in the conversation. It's just like an endpoint discussion, a device discussion. And we're seeing this as well on the devices side, right? So when people come and say, like, well, how are we going to build a mobile app? The first thing I say is, well, what do you mean by mobile? Right? What exactly is mobile? Where does mobile end and where does laptop begin, or convertible begin, or tablet begin, or phablet begin? Or are you saying that tablet is part of mobile? And there's actually not a consistent definition for that. Sometimes it's like, oh, well, it's based on screen size and all these things. But really, that doesn't really make sense, right? Because maybe if you have a great application written for your phone and you want to blow it up so it runs on this screen right here, does that mean it's not mobile anymore? Even though it's an Android application? That doesn't really make sense, right? So what we're seeing at Google, and this is from our Chrome OS and our Android strategies, is that we really just think now about capabilities of devices. This is how you want to use this device, and how appropriate is this device for this particular use case, right? So that way, and when you think about it that way, then everything becomes a continuum. You shouldn't have a separate security story for your small devices, your IoT devices, and have a separate security story for your signage, or a separate security story for your actual knowledge worker laptops. Everything should be on the same principles, and it's just certain properties of the device, like whether it has its own separate cellular connection, whether or not it needs to run local applications, or does it just run web applications. These are just orthogonal things you decide as you come up with your mobile strategy. So this is a good example of that. People might know this already, but about a year ago, I think, maybe a little less, we announced that Android applications were coming to Chrome OS. So previously on Chrome OS, you could only run things through Chrome, like in the web, HTML5 applications. Makes absolute sense, right? It's called Chrome OS. But now what we decided to do was say, well, you know what? Sometimes it makes sense for you to have some local information, to have some local data. So we're going to take the secure paradigm we have on Chrome OS. We're going to add to it the ability to deploy applications via Google Play and let any Android application run on that device. And what that means is that as Chrome OS moves and says, well, it's not in a laptop form factor, but now it's in a convertible form factor, you can take off that screen from the Chrome OS device, run it as a tablet, and have full access to all of the Android applications in the Play Store that are optimized for tablet and for mobile. and just have them run. Because now that Chrome OS device is literally an Android device. It's not emulated, it's not pixel pushed, it's not simulated. Chrome OS devices are Android devices, even when they come in large 17-inch laptop form factors. So that's what I mean by that blurring, where at some point, rather than trying to reconcile this model of, is that a mobile device, or should I use my mobile security story for that, or my laptop security story, it's actually better just to revamp the way you think about your endpoints and the way you think about your development to actually just encompass and embrace this choice that we have, versus forcing yourself into like knots, trying to pigeonhole things, which is what I see a lot of people doing. And we're trying to help with this, right? We're trying to help with this by bringing this modern way of doing application management, this modern way of doing security, and building it into all of our device endpoints by default. You'll see this in Android. You'll see this in Chrome. So everything we have here is available on both those platforms, giving comment management APIs so you can always feel like you're in control of your data and in control of your endpoints, and bringing those across all of the endpoints we work on. And we'll always prioritize that. And like I said, you can actually, many of the people using other endpoints, Windows devices, macOS devices, you'll see that same thing happening across the board. But we at Google definitely believe in it. And of course, we see cloud-native people, cloud-native application usage requires the cloud. And so the security story and the application development story extends across not just the endpoints, but all the way back into the cloud as well. So when we say, well, how do we make sure that the applications you develop for mobile or for now run on all of these different devices, the cloud is an integral part of that story. We're no longer living in the world where you're going to do virus scanning locally and then have local firewalls that have local malware detection, all these things. You're going to have modern endpoints with strict security policies, manageable from the cloud, and the cloud will actually add to the security capabilities of those endpoints as well. And so the two will work together, because we are going towards this always connected world. And so yes, we'll always think about how things work in an offline scenario, but we want to optimize to take advantage of the incredible power we get by having the cloud available to endpoints and devices. So we think about this as a general solution, a general platform. At Google, we think very broad, but we see applicability of this approach into individual verticals as well. And we've listed some here, and if folks are from specific verticals, please feel free to ask questions or come up at the end, and we can talk about specific verticals and how it applies. But these ideas is that the connected version of all of these businesses are all actually relatively similar. They all follow the theme of saying, what information do we have in these environments? Remember that instrumentation phase. How do we instrument these businesses? What are the key things that people wish they knew or wish they could tweak as performance attributes that they have never had access to? And how does the connection and proliferation of devices that are connected to the cloud enable us to actually measure and improve those things where we were never able to do so before? And not only are we able to do it now, but do it in a very quick and rapid fashion that allows for iteration and rapid business value delivery. So a few examples here, and I'll go through them quite quickly. Coca-Cola is actually thinking about putting, and actually is putting, connected end caps, basically those things at the end of the supermarket aisle where you go there and it has some Coke bottles and things. There's smart connected versions of those rolling out to stores nationwide, where there's a smart screen combined with smart sensors and beaconing to actually have customers go and say, wow, yeah, you know what? I want to engage with this. I want to look at this stuff. I'll help make a selection from what product I want to do. And we're seeing that not only does that improve Coke sales, that actually improves overall beverage sales in that particular store. Right? Not just from the ones from that particular end cap. Rentokil, and this is an example that's coming up pretty soon, is using machine learning to actually help in pest detection and pest control. And Sanmina and you saw that was discussed in the keynote, is actually instrumenting and upgrading their manufacturing plants by using Android and Chrome devices. So at this point, to talk more about this and focus on business transformation, I'd like to invite up Nisha Sharma. She's a managing director at our partner Accenture.
Thank you, Andrew. Thanks so much. Hi, everybody. My name is Nisha Sharma, Managing Director at Accenture. First of all, just wanted to thank you for inviting me here today, and also want to wish all of you a happy International Women's Day. So thank you for that. Thank you. Yeah, so I've been at Accenture for about 18 years now, and for the past 13, 14 years, my focus has been in enterprise mobility. And enterprise mobility, what we really mean by that is, how do we help our workers, our employees, with mobile solutions? How do we make them more productive, more effective in the work that they do? And how do we provide them with new technology to do that? And I think right now we're at a really, really interesting time because we have a lot of innovation to bring. And to me, as a technologist, as someone who's really passionate about all this stuff, it's a super exciting time. And we're doing some really cool things with our clients that are really changing the way that they do work. So I wanted to maybe just spend a little bit of time on, where we are when it comes to enterprise mobility, right? And I actually say we're in our third phase of mobility. And what I mean by that is, when we first started out, when we were talking about, Mobility 1.0, this was really just getting devices out to our workers, right? And they were pretty simple devices. It was typically a corporate liable environment, right? We're giving them the devices, and really all you were doing was email, calendar, very basic stuff like that, right? Maybe those were the old BlackBerry days, right? When we were doing that kind of stuff. Then we shifted to Mobility 2.0, which is really more about transactional applications, right? Now we're starting to do more, simple things with our devices, not just email, but now maybe we're doing some dashboarding, or we're getting some basic time and expense type of applications, or, we're able to order things, or we're able to, just do simple transactions, right? Things that we used to do on our laptops or desktops, we're now able to do some of those things on our mobile devices. We also started, this was the days of BYOD, right? We're still in those days, of course, but it was about bringing your own device and not necessarily the corporate liable lockdown devices, but how do we allow you as an employee to use your own device for work purposes as well. But now where we are is in, Mobility 3.0, which I really see as our transformational phase. Now we're actually trying to transform the way that we do work. So it's not just taking what you used to do, again, on your laptop or desktop and putting it on a smaller device, but now we're actually trying to change the way that we actually do a business function, right? And we've got some examples, and I'll show you some things of what we're doing there. But this is really where the cloud story comes in, which Andrew was talking about, because a lot of these capabilities that we need, all the personalization, the contextual awareness, all of that is using the cloud to help us with those types of solutions. So I wanted to just kind of talk a little bit about what's happening in the area of mobility again. Some would say that, well, I think enterprise mobility is actually becoming less about mobility and more about these holistic, anywhere, anyhow experiences, right? And so some people actually say that the term mobile apps is now an outdated one, right? Because maybe now they're digital apps, or maybe they're digital experiences, or maybe they're just apps, whatever we want to call it. But we're moving away from mobile apps. And why is that? It's because I think, the mobile device itself is changing. Right? Typically, or traditionally, we've thought of mobile devices as being phones or tablets, right? That's what we typically classified it as. But now, we've got wearables, whether it's your watches or your smart glasses or whatever it may be. Your car is now, mobile. It's running Android. It's got all this capability in there. Refrigerators, toothbrushes, right? I mean, all sorts of devices. Everything is now a mobile device, and we're treating it that way. So the device has definitely changed. The way we're interacting as well is also changing, right? Typically, when you have a mobile application, you're tapping on it, you're selecting drop-downs, you're entering some text and forms, right? I mean, it's that kind of an application. But now we're using chat, right? We're using messaging communications. We're using voice more now, actually. We're speaking into the phone now for some of our applications. Instant apps, right? We've got Android instant apps as well that are changing the way that we're interacting, right? So that is all changing. And then we've got these new intermediaries. So, ways that we're now connecting and talking to our employees and our customers is changing in ways that we didn't have before, right? If I look at, all the transactions that actually happen through WhatsApp, or all the transactions that are happening through Facebook Messenger, or now with Google Home or Google Assistant, right? Think of how we're actually connecting and talking to these devices to interact with our back-end systems. So this is something that's really changing, again, the mobile applications to now digital applications and digital experiences. So just a few trends here and where we're going. I think we've already talked about device and app usage will continue to rise. I think it was at around 70% of our workers today are already mobile workers. That number will keep growing, especially as we go to the rest of the world. And then the app usage also is increasing. So companies are building more applications. And not only are they building more applications, but they're providing access to those applications to more and more users within their organization. If you think about before, maybe it were like pockets of employees within a company that were actually using mobile apps and mobile devices. But now we're opening it up. We're looking at HR applications, finance applications, marketing applications, and so on, beyond what we traditionally thought of. Enterprises are going to keep increasing the spending when it comes to mobile applications and mobile devices. As more and more users are starting to use it, they need more applications or new applications and the ability to provide those solutions to those users. So they will continue to invest for the next few years in this space as well. I think now, like I mentioned, I think we're seeing a need for innovation. There has to be innovation in all that our companies do. We at Accenture say that every business is a digital business, and whoops, I went too far. But companies need to innovate. Whether you're a company that is leading in your industry, you need to innovate to kind of keep ahead of your competition, or whether you're maybe a little bit behind in your industry, but you need innovation to stay alive, right? Because your business may not exist if you don't keep innovating and keep doing new things. So there is definitely a need for innovation. Deep handset functionalities. When I saw this one, I thought it made a lot of sense, because if you think about how we use mobile applications today, we typically just use the screen. When you think about it from work purposes, right? You use the screen, you're maybe inputting into an application, you're tapping here and there, whatever. But we don't use the camera. We don't use all the sensors that are on the device. I mean, our hardware partners keep adding more and more features into the devices, but we don't really use them. And I think that's really starting to change now with some of the new capabilities and new functions that we have, which I'll show you some examples of. And then, as I said, the mobile experiences will continue to evolve as we have new ways of interacting and new experiences that we're looking to provide to our workers. Okay, so last fall, we announced our partnership with Google. It really is all about providing enterprise solutions to our customers, to our clients, and it is all built on top of the Google technology stack. I started working with Andrew and his team and really looking at how do we bring Android into the enterprise, and there are definitely differentiators with Android when it comes to the wide variety of devices out there, the form factors, the price points, right? There's a number of really strong reasons for picking Android. But one of the things we said is the real value is the entire Google technology stack. There is so much there that we can bring to life through Android applications, and that's what we're trying to show with some of the solutions and capabilities that we have. So I wanted to show you and talk to you a little bit about what are some of these innovations that we're seeing with our clients, and what are some of the interesting things that we're doing. And I'll hit a few of them. So collaboration is one of those areas. You might not think of collaboration as being so innovative, right? I mean, we've been using email, we've been using chat, we've been using all of these things for some time. But what's not really there is how do we actually incorporate that into our workflows, right? Like most of us, we're probably on email all day, all the time, right? It's just there. It's one of the apps we're constantly checking. But if you think of like a store worker, they're not checking email all the time. Or if you think of someone on a manufacturing plant, they're not checking email all the time. But that's a great tool that they can use for various purposes, right? Even the integration with Calendar, the integration with Hangouts, or the chat capabilities, right? Being able to talk to people. I mean, again, we may all be on our computers all the time and just chatting with people whenever we need to, but it's not so common in the rest of the enterprise in the workforce. And the integration with Drive, as an example. So if I'm a salesperson And I don't want to go and search somewhere for a document on a particular product or something, right? I just want to be able to go to my product catalog. I want to see what the products are, and if I want more information about that product, I want it to be right there. And so we can integrate that. We can integrate all of these things into our mobile applications to provide a better experience for our workers and something that they're actually going to use day to day. Digital assistants. This is a really fun one. So have you heard of chatbots? Maybe some of you have heard of chatbots. We're seeing a lot of really cool examples of using chatbots on the consumer side as well as the enterprise side. So, today when you're maybe booking a flight or you're calling, customer service, you could use the chat function that's there, like let's say on a website or something. But that's usually a human being on the other side of that who's actually responding to you. But now we're getting to the point where it doesn't have to be a human being. It's just a bot. It's something, it's a machine that's responding to you. And we've done a few different examples and rollouts of chatbots for call center type of applications. But what we've actually built out as well are a chatbot for workers, for employees. So we've got one as an example for a field worker, right? So a field technician who might go out in the field to fix something or to work on something. Well, maybe they might come to a situation that they don't know how to solve, right? And the worst case, as you may know in field service, is to have to say, you know what, I can't fix this. I'm going to have to send somebody else out. That's like the worst situation that a field service company would want to be in. So we want to make these workers productive, right, and self-sufficient while they're out there. So we gave them the ability to just say, hey, Google, why is this transformer not working? And then it's using machine learning to suggest things for you to try to troubleshoot that particular item. So that's a great example of how we can use chatbots for workers. We have another one for a sales worker, where this one is a little bit more intelligent. This one is more like your personal assistant. So whereas the field worker was more of a, hey, help me troubleshoot this, the sales worker application, chatbot, which we call Donna. Donna is, you can just imagine you as a salesperson are going to your client, hey, Donna, tell me about my day. And she'll actually she'll actually speak out and say, you've got 4 meetings today. Your first meeting is with, blah, blah, blah. Hey, Donna, tell me who are my hot leads, right? And she can tell you, these are your hot leads in the area that you're going to today. Then she can get even smarter and say, I can ask her, hey, Donna, what product should I recommend to this customer today? And she can actually take a look at all the things that are happening around this customer. She can take a look at what their past purchase history has been, what their inventory levels might be, what their contract statuses might be, and actually suggest things for you as a salesperson to go and talk to that client about. So it's about, again, using machine learning to make these personal assistants or chatbots there as, as your helper. Image recognition. Okay, so this is a fun one. I'll actually show you a demo of this one. So this morning, there was actually a press release about the work that we just did with Rent-A-Kill. Rent-A-Kill is a pest control company, and what they wanted to do was they wanted to equip their field technicians with the ability to take a picture of insects, right, cockroaches, beetles, whatever it is, and be able to automatically identify what it is, right? Their technicians are great. They're used to, all sorts of bugs, but, they come across bugs that they don't necessarily know, or sometimes they'll get it wrong. And that could have a big impact because it's really important for them to know what type of bug it is so that they can provide the right chemical treatment and chemical mixes to treat it. So that's what we did. So we actually built an application that allows them to take a picture of the bug, and it'll identify it. So if I can switch here, I'll actually show you. I don't have any live cockroaches here with me, but I do have a couple of pictures, and I'll show you how that works. So, can I cast it? There we go. Okay, so this is the application. So I'm just going to come and identify a pest. So now you can see here, I've got this lovely cockroach here, and I will take a picture of this cockroach, and I will use it. And now, again, it's using machine learning to calculate and figure out which type of bug this is. And we've trained it on a number of different, cockroaches and beetles and so on and so on. and it identified that this is the American cockroach, right? And that's what my cheat sheet says here. It is the American cockroach that I actually just scanned. So, it allows you to do that. It allows the technician to see the picture and actually compare and say, yep, that's the right one. And it'll provide them some detail with it. All right, we go ahead and select the match. Then it's going to populate the information in the application about that particular bug or that treatment. Today, they spend a lot of time just manually going in and having to fill this all out. Now we've just automated it. And if I keep going, then it's going to provide me with a session summary. And what it does is, this place was a pretty nasty place, I guess, pretty infested with all sorts of things. But now I can go and view a remediation plan. So because it identified that this is the American cockroach, it will tell me how to treat it, what I should be doing, and it actually will also provide recommendations for a customer so that they can help to prevent this from happening again, in the future. So that's an example of how we're using machine learning for pest control, which I never thought I would do, but yes, that's an example. If we can go back to the screen, please. Another example of using machine learning for image recognition is what we did with our smart parking application. So we've got this implemented in a few different places today. But if you think about your experience when you go and park in a garage, for example, parking garage or a parking lot, you might go and it might say that there are 50 available spots, right? And it's calculating that based on sensors that are actually in every single parking spot, right? That can be very expensive to, first of all, implement, but also to maintain in an ongoing manner. So what we did was we actually trained the models to identify empty spots versus occupied spots, right? So this is using camera imagery, right? Many parking garages and parking lots already have CCTV cameras and other cameras already in place like that. So we can pull from those images and just be able to detect empty spot, occupied spot. Somebody's perhaps parked in an illegal parking spot where they shouldn't be parking, right? And those notifications can go to the right people to deal with that. But now, as a consumer or as an employee, perhaps is looking and coming to work in the morning, as I come into the parking area, it can send me on my app, hey, your parking spot is here, right? Because you can now reserve a parking spot. You go park in there, right? And it just allows you to direct the parking that way. So a really interesting use case of how, again, we can use machine learning for parking. Okay, so the last example I have here is augmented reality. So this is a really fun one. I think this is where Google really shines because they've got some cool technologies which I don't think any other companies do. So one example here is the far left there. This was again for a field worker. So the idea is that as a field worker, if I'm going out and I come across an object again, I'm maybe not familiar with it, or maybe it's new, or maybe I need to learn how to do this, I can either use my smart glasses or I can even use a phone, right? And I can use the phone and just kind of hold it up to that object, right? So this is a water pump. So I can hold it up to the object and it will provide some overlays to me and tell me, check this transmitter level, check this valve, right? And it'll guide me and show arrows and point to where I should be looking at and help me to troubleshoot that particular water pump as an example. We did another one. This screenshot here is with Tango. If you're familiar with Project Tango, this one, these screenshots are from what we did with BMW, and they're now actually rolling this application out to their showrooms and allowing people to come in and virtualize a BMW car in their environment, which is a really cool one. I can show you that as well. But what I wanted to show you was an enterprise use case of using Project Tango. So if you're not familiar, right, Project Tango is more of an augmented reality type of scenario. We also got some virtual reality demos and solutions as well. Virtual reality is more when you've got your headset and everything you're seeing is in your virtual world there. But augmented reality is actually using your real world and applying some additional information or virtual objects within that your real world. So think of this scenario, right? As a salesperson, I go out to my client and I go talk to them about the products that I'm trying to sell. Well, typically I would bring those products with me. well, what happens if I'm in a industry where the products that we make are too big and they're just too heavy, and I cannot physically bring them with me to the meeting? Well, so now that's where we've got to this example here on Project Tango. So if I can head back to the Chromecast, please. I need to switch devices. OK. All right, so I'm just going to load this app up. So simple name, Augmented Reality Catalog, RCAT. Now what this is going to do is it's going to allow me to virtualize an actual object in my environment, right? So if you look here, there's no big drills or anything, right? So what I can do is I can select this object, and I'm going to drop it. Whoops. I'm going to drop it right here. So now you see this object. This is the actual size of the object. I can go around it. I can take a closer look at it. I can even go inside it if I wanted to and actually see what's going on in that particular drill bit. And then, yeah, I can manipulate it. I can get some additional information about it, right? So it's a great example of how I can bring this object here. Now imagine if it's something bigger, right? Like this big bit. This is the actual size of this thing, right? So I've actually put it here in my environment. Again, I can walk around it. I can take a look at all the different, pieces of this thing. I can see what this, get as up close as I want to for this thing. I can even go inside if I wanted to see what's in it for those types of use cases. So again, a great example of how I can bring this technology to my client. But now what if I want to show how it actually works, right? So I can do simulations. If I can place it here. OK, so this is a drill bit, and it's actually showing me how it works, right? Because it's actually drilling into the ground. Now this device, it recognizes and understands the space that you're in, so it can figure out that this is the floor, those are the walls, right? That's the ceiling, up there. But this is the actual size of this drill bit. And you can see, if I can bring this to my customers, it will really show them how it all works and how it's, what the actual experience is like. So if we can go back to the screen, please. Yeah, so those are some examples of innovation and what we're actually doing with customers today. And at this point, I'll invite Andrew back up and take it from there.
All right, thank you very much, Nisha. Those were wonderful demos. Yeah. Thank you for not doing the insect demo live. That was. Thank you very much. We appreciate you spending time here.